At a family dinner, my sister stood up and said, "You're no longer part of the family." I smiled and accepted. They thought I was the black sheep. Simple, quiet, invisible. But they forgot one detail. The bank account they all used was funded by me. That night, I canceled everything. My name is Charlotte. I'm 34 years old, and I've always been the plain daughter of the Anderson family. Since childhood, I was the one who never drew attention. Without the stunning beauty of my sister Chloe, 2 years younger, or the charisma of my brother Ryan, the adored youngest, I was the one who went unnoticed in family photos. The one no one remembered to ask about work or how life was going. Growing up, my parents invested everything in my siblings. Chloe got complete orthodontic treatment, ballet lessons, international trips to improve her English. Ryan had access to private soccer school, public speaking courses, the latest laptop for his studies. For me, there was always just the basics, or we'll see about that later. I learned early that I would need to achieve things on my own. At my age 18, I was accepted into the State University for Business Administration. No one showed up at my graduation. It coincided with one of Chloe's dance recitals. That night, I swallowed my tears and promised myself, one day they would realize my worth, not for what I appeared to be, but for who I really was. And so began my silent journey. While Chloe changed jobs every 6 months because she didn't feel fulfilled, and Ryan tried to start businesses with my parents' money, I worked tirelessly. I started as an intern at a tech company, accepting any overtime, any additional project. I slept little, studied a lot, and saved every penny. By 25, I was already a project manager. At 28, director of operations. At 30, I was invited to become a partner in a financial solutions startup. Our asset management app took off, and within 2 years, we had over 1 million users. A multinational bought us out, and suddenly, without fanfare or ostentation, I became a millionaire. No one in my family knew. Not because it was a secret, but because no one asked. At family gatherings, while everyone commented on Ryan's new car, financed by my parents, or Chloe's vacation in Paris, also funded by them, I just smiled discreetly in my simple clothes, my modest car, my functional apartment. On the outside, the same old Charlotte. Inside, a woman who had achieved more than all of them combined. It was during the pandemic that everything started to change. My father lost his job at the construction company where he had worked for 30 years. My mother, always a housewife, became desperate. The beauty salon my sister tried to open went bankrupt in 3 months. The restaurant where my brother invested, all his savings didn't survive the lockdown. One night in March 2020, I received a call from my mother. She was crying, desperate. "Charlotte, I don't know what to do. We're behind on all the bills and the bank is threatening to take the house." She sobbed on the phone, her voice choked. I felt a tightness in my chest. Despite everything, they were my family. "How much do you need, Mom?" When she mentioned the amount, I realized it was just the beginning of a long crisis. The next day, I transferred the money and created a joint family account. I explained that it was a financial organization for difficult times, that I would put in a fixed amount every month to help with basic expenses. "But how do you have this money, honey? Don't you work at that little computer company?" asked my mother, genuinely confused. I swallowed hard. "I have my savings, Mom, and the little company is doing well." That's how, without much explanation, I became the silent provider for the Anderson family. Every month, I deposited enough to cover rent, bills, groceries, health insurance, and even some luxuries. They thought the account was some kind of emergency fund created by my father before the crisis, and that I just helped with a small part. Nobody questioned much. Money coming in, problems solved. During the next 2 years, I observed a transformation in my family's spending. What started as help for basic necessities soon became an open door for excesses. Chloe went back to getting expensive cosmetic treatments. Ryan bought a new car, claiming he needed it to look for a job. My parents remodeled the entire kitchen because they deserved some comfort after so much suffering. Meanwhile, at family gatherings, I was still the same invisible Charlotte. No one asked about my work or my life. Conversations revolved around my siblings' achievements. Achievements financed by my money, without them knowing. "You know, Charlotte, you should invest more in yourself," Chloe said once, looking at my unpolished nails. "A beauty treatment would do wonders. I can recommend my esthetician." I smiled politely. "I'm fine like this, thank you. That's why you can't find anyone. No man likes a neglected woman," she added, as if she were doing me a favor with that advice. I saw my mother nodding discreetly. My father pretended not to hear, focused on his phone. Ryan let out a chuckle. "You should listen to your sister, Charlotte. She only wants what's best for you," my mother finally said, as if I were a rebellious teenager and not a 34-year-old woman. I took a deep breath. "Everyone lives the way they choose, right? That's the problem," Chloe shot back. "You chose this mediocre little life. Work home, homework, no ambition, no dreams. It's pitiful." Those words hit me like a slap. Pity? They felt sorry for me who was silently supporting that entire structure of appearances, but I swallowed my response, as I always did. I changed the subject and was soon forgotten in the conversation again. The disrespectful situations kept accumulating. At my father's birthday, everyone gave expensive gifts. With the money I deposited, I gave him a book he had always wanted, bought with my own money. Outside, the joint account. He barely thanked me, setting the book aside to admire the watch that Ryan had given him. Another time, during a Sunday lunch, I overheard my mother whispering in the kitchen with my aunt. Charlotte is such a sweet person, but so bland. I don't know where we went wrong with her. Chloe and Ryan are so vivacious, so full of presence. She always seems invisible. My aunt responded consolingly, but she seems at peace with that simple life she leads. Not everyone is born to shine. You know, I felt my eyes water, but I took a deep breath. This wasn't news to me. I had always been the daughter who didn't shine, who didn't deserve special attention. The last straw came 6 months ago when I noticed that spending on the joint account had doubled. Checking the statement, I discovered absurd purchases. A trip to Cancun for Chloe and her boyfriend. A cryptocurrency investment made by Ryan. New furniture for my parents' living room. I decided it was time for a frank conversation. I arranged a family dinner. Something rare, since I was normally ignored when I suggested get-togethers. This time, to my surprise, everyone confirmed their attendance. Little did I know they had other plans for that evening. I chose a simple but cozy restaurant. Nothing too expensive or pretentious, just a place where we could talk without distractions. I arrived punctually at 8 p.m. as always. And, as always, I waited almost an hour until everyone arrived. Well, this place is different, commented Chloe as she entered, looking around with an expression of slight disdain. Wasn't there anything more, elegant? I smiled politely. I thought it would be a good place for us to talk. Typical of Charlotte, to choose something like this, Ryan whispered to my sister, but loud enough for me to hear, always pinching pennies. I pretended not to notice the jab and we headed to the table. After ordering, I took a deep breath and began to talk about the reason for that dinner. I wanted to talk about the family joint account, I began calmly. I noticed that spending has increased a lot in recent months and I could barely finish the sentence. My father interrupted me. Oh, that's my business and your mother's, Charlotte. Don't worry about it. Actually, Dad, I do worry because that's when I noticed a strange look exchanged between my family members. An uncomfortable silence settled and I realized something was wrong. Very wrong. Chloe cleared her throat and adjusted her hair, her nervous tic since adolescence. Actually, Charlotte, since you brought up the subject of family, we wanted to talk to you too. My heart raced. Had they discovered? Had someone finally investigated the origin of that mysterious money that came in every month? My sister continued, with that forced smile she always used when she wanted to seem sympathetic without really being so. We've been talking a lot about you. About me? I asked, feeling my stomach contract. Yes, she continued, shooting a quick glance at my parents, who remained silent, looking at their plates. We feel that you are, how can I say, out of place. Out of place? I repeated, trying to understand where that conversation was going. You see, Charlotte, Ryan interrupted, assuming his businessman tone that never actually succeeded. Our family has a certain image to uphold. We're all trying to rebuild our lives after difficult times, and each one has their role in this. I looked at him, incredulous. And what would my role be in all this? That's when Chloe dropped the bomb. That's the problem, Charlotte. You don't have a role. You're, how can I say, dead weight. The silence that followed was deafening. I looked at my parents, expecting some defense, some word of disapproval for what I had just heard. Nothing. My mother kept her eyes down, and my father pretended to be concentrating on cutting a piece of meat. Dead weight? I repeated, my voice faltering slightly. Don't be dramatic. Chloe rolled her eyes. Look at yourself. 34, single, no social life, outdated clothes, a mediocre job. You haven't evolved. It's like you stopped in time while we all moved forward. I felt my face burn. Those words hurt more than any physical slap. And what does this have to do with the joint account? I managed to ask, keeping my voice as controlled as possible. That's when my sister stood up, putting her hands on the table and leaning slightly in my direction. Her eyes fixed on mine, she said with a coldness I'll never forget. We talked, and we think it's best you go your own way. You're no longer part of the family. The restaurant continued with its usual hustle and bustle, waiters passing by, cutlery clinking against plates. But for me, everything had gone silent. It was as if time had stopped at that exact moment. I looked around the table. Ryan maintained a smirk, as if approving every word said by Chloe. My mother still wouldn't look at me, but her nervous fingers folded and unfolded the cloth napkin. My father, always the patriarch, the strong man of the family, just sighed and said quietly, "It's better this way, sweetheart. You never really fit in." Those words coming from him were the final blow. I felt something break inside me, not from sadness, but like glass shattering, clear, definitive, irreparable. The most surprising thing to me was my reaction. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't beg for explanations or for a chance to defend myself. I just smiled, a calm, almost serene smile, which seemed to disconcert them more than any emotional reaction would have. I understand, I finally replied, folding my napkin and placing it on the table. If that's how you feel, I respect the decision. Chloe momentarily seemed confused by my peaceful acceptance. Perhaps she expected tears, pleas, a scene. Ryan frowned, suspicious of my contained reaction. So, you accept it? My mother finally found her voice, seeming genuinely surprised. If it's what everyone wants, who am I to disagree? I replied, still maintaining that enigmatic smile. After all you yourself said, I never really fit in. I called the waiter, paid my part of the bill, and stood up. I looked one last time at those familiar faces that, at that moment, seemed to belong to complete strangers. Have a good life, I said simply, and left. The cool night air hit me when I left the restaurant, but instead of feeling destroyed, I felt a strange liberation. Throughout my life, I had sought approval from that family. I diminished myself so as not to overshadow my siblings. I kept quiet in the face of veiled insults. And now, ironically, they were freeing me from those invisible chains. I got into my car, a basic model that perfectly hid the fact that I could buy the entire dealership if I wanted to, and drove to my apartment. It wasn't a luxurious place, but it was cozy and well located, a refuge that reflected who I really was. Discreet on the outside, rich in possibilities on the inside. I sat on my sofa and turned on my laptop. I accessed my bank account and looked at the balance. 8 digits that never made a difference to my family, because they never knew they existed. With a few clicks, I accessed the joint account that had supported their lifestyle for more than 2 years. It was surprisingly easy. A few clicks, a password, a confirmation. I canceled all the cards linked to the account, blocked all automatic debits, and transferred the remaining balance to my personal account. The system asked me if I was sure, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't hesitate. Yes, I'm sure. I closed the laptop and looked out the window. The city was illuminated out there, thousands of lights shining in the darkness. I took my phone and turned off notifications. I knew it was just a matter of time until the desperate phone calls started. That night, I slept better than I had in years, without the weight of carrying a family that never valued me, without the anguish of being invisible to the people who should have seen me first, without the pain of loving those who only knew how to judge. As expected, the next day my phone already showed 12 missed calls. 7 from my mother, 3 from Ryan, 2 from Chloe. No text messages, which was typical of them. They preferred the immediate drama of a call to written communication that could be kept as evidence. I didn't return any calls. I followed my routine normally, went to work, had lunch with colleagues, went home. Only at the end of the day, when the number of missed calls had passed 20, did I decide to answer when my mother's name appeared on the screen again. Hello, I answered, with no emotion in my voice. Charlotte! Thank God you answered, my mother spoke hastily, almost without breathing. Something terrible happened. The account, honey. The joint account. We can't access it. The cards were blocked, there's no money, the rent wasn't paid. Your father is desperate. I kept silent for a few seconds, just listening to her sobs on the other end of the line. Charlotte? Are you there? I am, Mom. Do you know anything about this? Can you access the account? We need to resolve this urgently, the bank manager said. The cards were canceled last night and I canceled them, Mom, I interrupted, with a calmness I didn't know I possessed. Silence on the other end. What did you say? She finally asked, her voice choked. I said it was me who canceled the cards and closed the account. But why? How could you do this? You weren't authorized to… Yes, I was, Mom, I interrupted again. The account was mine. The money was mine. Another silence, this one longer and heavier. What are you talking about? She asked, her voice now an incredulous whisper. That account you've been using for more than 2 years? The money that mysteriously appeared every month, that paid the rent, the bills, the health insurance, Chloe's trips, Ryan's failed investments? It was all mine, she gasped on the other end of the line. That's not possible. You wouldn't have the means to… I have much more than you can imagine, Mom. I always did. While you were all too busy judging me for being simple and plain, I was building my life, my career, my assets, without fanfare, without needing anyone to notice. Charlotte, I don't understand. You're saying that… I'm saying that little computer company made me a millionaire. That while you were buying designer clothes with my money, I wore simple clothes by choice, not by necessity. That while you were remodeling the house with my money, I lived in a modest apartment because I appreciate practicality. I heard a muffled sob. And now you decide to cut everything off like this, without warning, because of a silly argument at dinner? I felt an ironic laugh escape my lips. Silly? You call it a silly argument when your children kicked me out of the family with your silent approval? You think it's silly that my own father said I never fit in? Oh, honey, you're exaggerating. Chloe is explosive. You know how she is. And your father only meant you were always different. No, Mom, don't try to minimize what happened. All my life, I was the invisible daughter, the one who never received attention, the one who had to fend for herself. I accepted that. But when you told me I was no longer part of the family, well, I just respected your decision. But Charlotte, family is forever. We fight, we argue, but we remain family. That's not what you said yesterday. And you know what's interesting? For years, I felt guilty for not being what you expected, for not being pretty and outgoing like Chloe, for not being charismatic like Ryan. I tried to compensate by being useful, helping financially when you needed it, and even so, it wasn't enough. I heard voices in the background. My father and probably my siblings arguing, trying to listen to the conversation. Charlotte, please, my mother begged. Let's talk in person. Come over here, let's resolve this as a family. There is no more family, Mom. You made that very clear yesterday. But what are we going to do? How will we pay the rent? The bills? I felt a tightness in my chest, realizing that her concern wasn't about having hurt me, but about how they would survive without my money. Do as I've always done. Work, save, build your own life. I believed you when you said you didn't want me anymore. Now believe me when I say I don't want to help anymore. I hung up before I could hear more pleas. In the days that followed, the calls continued. Messages started to arrive. First from my mother, then from Ryan, finally even from Chloe, all with the same desperate tone, all avoiding taking responsibility for what had happened. Honey, please reconsider. Your father is sick with worry. Charlotte, let's talk like adults. That was a misunderstanding. Sis, sorry if I was harsh with you. You know I love you, right? I didn't respond to any of them. Not out of revenge, but because I had finally understood that love was conditional. They wanted me back not for the person I was, but for the money I represented. A week later, I received an unexpected visit at the office. Ryan showed up, visibly uncomfortable being there, looking around as if he were stepping into unknown territory. Miss Charlotte, your brother is here, announced my secretary, with an expression that revealed she already knew the whole story. Send him in, I replied, maintaining my professional composure. Ryan entered hesitantly. For the first time, he saw my office. Spacious, elegant, with a view of the city. He saw my name on the door with the title Executive Director. He saw the innovation awards on the walls, the photos with important figures in the industry. I saw his eyes widen as he realized that his plain sister commanded an empire. Charlotte, all this is yours? He asked, seeming genuinely impressed. Yes, Ryan, all this is mine. What can I do for you? Can I do for... He swallowed hard, clearly not expecting such a cold reception. I came to try to understand what's happening, he began, sitting in the chair in front of my desk. The account, the money, all this time it was you? I nodded, saying nothing. But how? Why? Why did you never tell us? Did anyone ask? I responded simply. At any point in all these years, did anyone in the family really want to know what I did? How I lived? Who I was? He lowered his eyes, without an answer. You had already created an image of me, the plain sister, without ambition, without a life. It was easier to put me in that box than to admit that maybe you didn't really know me. But you could have said something. You could have shown us. For what, Ryan? To change the dynamics? So you would like me for what I have? Not for who I am? He shook his head, seeming confused. It's not like that, Charlotte. We like you. That's not how it seemed at that dinner. You're no longer part of the family. Remember? He ran his hand through his hair. Uncomfortable. Chloe exaggerated. You know how dramatic she is. Nobody took that seriously. You took it seriously enough to kick me out of the table, to agree with her, to let me leave without a word in my defense. He was silent for a few moments. What do you want, Charlotte? You want us to beg? To humiliate ourselves? Is that it? I looked at my youngest brother, that boy who was always the favorite, the protected one, the special one. Now sitting in front of me, he seemed small, fragile, lost. I don't want anything, Ryan, that's the point. For the first time in my life, I'm not expecting anything from you. I'm not trying to prove my worth. I'm not seeking approval. I'm simply living my life as you suggested I do. But what about the family? Our parents? What about them? They're desperate, Charlotte. The rent is due. Bills are piling up. The credit card was blocked. And? What do you mean, and? They're our parents. Yes, they're our parents. The same ones who spent their entire lives favoring you and Chloe. The same ones who never defended me when I was humiliated. The same ones who silently agreed when I was expelled from the family. Why should I continue supporting them? He swallowed hard, without arguments. What do you want from me, Ryan? You want me to start depositing money into an account for you to spend again? You want me to pretend nothing happened? That I continue being the invisible one? The plain sister who is now useful because she has money? It's not like that. It's exactly like that. I interrupted, raising my voice for the first time. You wanted me out when you thought I was worthless. Now that you've discovered my money makes a difference, suddenly I'm important again? I saw his eyes fill with tears, perhaps from shame, perhaps from frustration at not being able to manipulate me. What do you want me to tell them? He finally asked, defeated. The truth, Ryan. Tell them that I finally understood my place, or lack thereof, in this family. Tell them that I respect your decision to continue without me, and I hope you respect mine to continue without you. He stood up, looking 20 years older than when he entered. So this is final then? You're really going to abandon the family? I smiled sadly. No, Ryan. The family abandoned me. I'm just accepting it. He left without saying anything else, and I felt a mix of pain and relief. It was the end of a chapter in my life, a chapter that was too long, too painful. In the weeks that followed, I heard from mutual acquaintances that my parents had to sell their car to pay debts, that Chloe finally started working as a receptionist at a clinic, that Ryan was sending out resumes for the first time in his life. Part of me felt sorry. Another part, the stronger one, knew that this was exactly the lesson they needed to learn. Life isn't just appearances, and value isn't measured by what you show. but by who you are. 6 months have passed since that night at the restaurant. I heard from an old neighborhood friend that my parents had to move to a smaller apartment. Chloe lost her job at the clinic for missing too many days. Ryan got a job as a salesperson in an electronics store. Ironically, selling products of the type my company developed software for. One afternoon, I ran into Chloe at a mall. She saw me, hesitated, made a motion to approach. Our eyes met for a moment. I smiled politely, as I would to any distant acquaintance, and went on my way. There was no more anger or pain, just the certainty that some bridges, once broken, should not be rebuilt. My parents grew old without really knowing me. My siblings went on with their lives without understanding the lesson. I flourished in my chosen solitude, surrounded by people who valued me for who I am, not for what I have or appear to have. I learned that family isn't necessarily the one we're born into, but the one that accepts us as we are, and that sometimes silence is the most powerful response we can give. Today, I look back without regrets. That family dinner, where I was expelled from the table and from their lives, was actually the moment when I finally freed myself. Sometimes you need to lose everything to discover how much you already have. And as for those who rejected me, I hope they learned something, not out of revenge, but because every story has a lesson. Mine was, never judge a book by its cover, especially when that book is paying your bills. Have you ever felt that your simplicity was mistaken for weakness? Share your story.